still lecturing at the University of Abuja. Is that right?
Not quite.
Okay, not
I'm
quite.
doing a
Well, then he.
broad global consulting now.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So, and all of that. But I think we're most interested in the fact that he is an expert when it comes to climate and environmental issues, which is one of the major things we talk about on this program, as it affects us as a people and also the world all over. Now, today on the program, we want to take a look at something that a lot of us are very familiar with, something that's very synonymous to NEPA. I mean, let me just use the word NEPA. I remember one time someone was asking, is NEPA still existing? But I think we've just grown so used to that acronym. So we're going to focus on the excessive usage of generator sites in Nigeria, the effect, the impact it can have on us as a people, how it can affect our health, as well as the environment as a whole. The generator sites are things that are very common. Almost all homes, so many places have this. Do we have any statistic, any numbers that can give us an idea of just how much we rely on the generator sites?
We do. Some people have done studies on this issue. Right now, we have about approximately 60 million diesel and petrol generators in Nigeria. Another way to look at it too is for every generator that we have about 2.5 people using that generator. So for every household of 2.5 people, we have a generator.
I'm trying to understand that mathematics, but
well,
I know
we have 180 million people
yeah,
in the country.
Wow.
So if you divide that by 2.5, what do you get? It's somewhere in that 60 million range.
That's a lot.
So however you look at it, it still comes up to about 60 million.
Power has been a very big issue for us in Nigeria. I mean, the lack of proper and electricity and all that, and that's why we are talking about this generator usage. We need power for a lot of things, so much so that when it is not available, we have to look for another means, which unfortunately has been for us majorly here, the usage of the generator sites. Now, that statistics, is it just for homes?
No, it encompasses homes and businesses.
So businesses, private, government,
yes,
and so many other things.
But that is the largest generator usage ratio that you will have in the world per capita. That's 60 million. Nigeria is the largest importer of generators in the world. Then when you also look at the amount of money that we're putting out to fuel the generators, to maintain the generators, even to purchase new ones, it's phenomenal. It's just mind-boggling. We have statistics putting that figure in the range of 5 trillion naira every year. 5 trillion is being spent on buying generators, fueling the generators, maintaining the generators. So it's a lot of money. You can see it's almost the effective amount of our budget. I say effective because we've been saying 7 and 8 trillion, but when you look at budget implementation, it's much lower than that. It's almost what we are spending in the public sector to fund the economy, and that's what we're spending in the private sector to actually run the economy. So it's a contradiction in terms.
And that includes those who are using the small generator sets, commonly called "I pass my neighbor" and all that. And sometimes people are a bit ashamed to even talk about it, like, oh, they have a very small one, but they are contributing as well. They're spending money. They service it. They maintain it as well. And then the same fumes and all that comes out from that one too. Now we've had several stories about people, most times, household where maybe this fumes from the generator sets and all that, for lack of a, good idea of where to place them. I don't know really how it happens, but then it's that dangerous to our health. People have lost their lives as a result of that. Just how dangerous is that?
It's very, very dangerous. And the reason is quite simple. We're talking about carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide is a gas that is colorless, it is odorless also. So you can't see it, you can't smell it. And when it permeates the atmosphere, it displaces oxygen. in your body. Carbon dioxide displaces the oxygen, so you can suffocate within 5 minutes.
Whoa.
You can die. And the most difficult thing about this is you may not even know why you died or how you died. And people around you may not realize that you have died until the next morning, because you will simply pass on in your sleep. So the placement of generators is very critical. Sometimes people put generators in passageways, and there's no ventilation
like in a
outlet.
corridor.
In the corridor, there's no ventilation outlet. They may put their generator maybe in the kitchen, the room that is supposed to be the kitchen, and leave the door open, and then the carbon monoxide also gets into the bedrooms while they are sleeping. Most people die while they are sleeping, because that's when it's most harmful. You find that as you're sleeping, the oxygen in your system is being displaced. So you die of asphyxiation, of oxygen deprivation in your system. So it's very dangerous, and we cannot say enough about people making sure that if you must use a generator overnight, make sure it's outside and is well ventilated.
Wow. So, but aside from this extreme situation, how bad is occasionally inhaling this, toxin from generator sets? Because sometimes you go to the markets, it's so congested, and for those markets that are allowed to use, generator sets, it's everywhere. You're almost literally choking, even though you're outside. I mean, it's that bad, because so many shops and maybe offices are also using it. Sometimes, in a building, where you have a lot of offices and everybody's using their own gen, the whole air around that environment.
It's very harmful, because you need to worry about 4 distinct substances coming out of the generator. First one, which is most associated with generator pollution, is carbon dioxide. We talked about carbon monoxide a moment ago. Now we're talking about carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is also a very harmful gas, because it's exactly the opposite of oxygen also. We breathe in oxygen, we put out carbon dioxide. So when you have excessive carbon dioxide in the system around you, it messes up, once again, it messes up the oxygen availability that you have. But beyond that, the one that troubles us the most is the impact of carbon dioxide on the environment. It is the most significant contributor to climate change. There are some more powerful gases, but because of the quantum of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, so we look at it as first, it helps to increase the surface temperature within the environment. It helps to promote what we call the greenhouse gas effect, which leads to climate change. And basically what it does is it traps heat within the Earth's surface.
So everything is warmer.
Yes, ordinarily heat that comes down here, radiation that is supposed to also bounce back into the stratosphere and beyond us. But because of carbon dioxide, it acts as a blanket. It traps the heat here, which makes everything warmer. So that's when you begin to have climate change issues. So it's a major contributor to that. Then you also have, coming out of the exhaust fumes, you have what we call particulate matter. Particulate matter are very tiny particles of pollution. I always give an example to my class, my students. I say, if you're looking at what do we call it, the stadium where Man U plays.
Okay, you want us to go the football way now?
Well, that's what. If you are looking at that stadium, which is a standard stadium, and you look at that, and the width from one goalpost to the other, the width of that stadium, you look at it as the width of a human hair. So I'm not saying length now. If you take a human hair standing up, the width from one side of the human hair to the other side, and you now expand that to look like a football field, a particulate matter will be the size of the football in the center of that. So that's how tiny it is.
Oh, okay,
You see,
okay. Now I get it.
Yes, you're looking at a human hair.
Yeah.
Now you have human hair as a whole football field, just
Yeah,
the width
yeah,
of it,
yeah. Okay.
not the length.
Yeah, the width.
The width, and then to show you how small a particular
And almost
matter is.
insignificant.
Yes,
Yeah.
just a football, the ball that they play. So it is very, very tiny,
But then harmful.
But very harmful because it gets into your lungs, gets into your respiratory system, gets into your heart, gets into your organs, and it does a lot of damage because it's harmful. And it has been associated with heart disease, increased heart attacks, stroke, because once again it affects the way oxygen is directed to the organs, especially your brain, when we talk about stroke. So particulate matter is very, very harmful. And the unfortunate thing in Nigeria is that we have research showing that as many as 94% of Nigerians are exposed to particulate matter on a daily basis, be it from generator or from pollution from vehicles on the road.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, the one that comes out from the cars,
Yes.
the smoke, from the
Yes.
exhaust pipe, is it the same with what comes out from the generator
It
sets?
is, because it's exactly the same combustion process, burning
And now,
of fuel.
now we have, because people in their homes could have two generator sets, because
Yes.
one has got to be, on standby. The other one maybe is, for whatever reason, they can have two.
Especially in businesses.
And then they also have two or more cars.
Yes. So the
Which are
explosion-
almost always being used as well.
Yes.
I'm just trying to make us understand, just how much of effects we are having on the environment as we allow these things to
Yes.
be everywhere.
There's a lot of pollution coming out, and unfortunately, we're absorbing that pollution. If you're in traffic, I feel bad for a lot of people in the Lagos axis who have to sit in traffic. You go into work, you sit in traffic for 3 hours,
the same
coming
thing.
back another 3 hours on a daily basis. That really degrades the quality of your life and your life expectancy, and it's been proven because those things that you're breathing in are going to affect your vital organs, whether it's your heart, your lungs, your kidneys. You look at the respiratory system. A lot of people will now have chronic asthma, whereas if they just move from that area, the asthma will resolve itself. You have people dying of pneumonia. Children, one of the biggest causes of childhood mortality in the world is pneumonia, associated with air quality. 1.6 million children die of pneumonia based on poor air quality alone. And Nigeria contributes significantly to that number. So it's a major problem. And then people say, oh, these things you're talking about, we don't really notice these things. They don't really affect us. But then I asked them, when we were growing up in the 80s, life expectancy of the average Nigerian was about 70 years. Now it is 50. The life, meaning that if you're born today and you're subjected to all these environmental hazards,
In the next 50
you
years.
can expect to live about 50 years,
Wow.
as opposed to 70 when we were growing up. So the impact is visible, it's palpable. You also look at our mortality rate tends to be higher than it is in countries that are not as polluted. People dying of heart attacks, heart disease, stroke.
Yeah, diseases that, years before now, perhaps.
We didn't have as much. Yeah.
Yes, and maybe even in the younger people, because
Yes.
you may think, oh, you have to be from 60 or 70 before you could come down with certain diseases. But now, very young people have some of these diseases as well.
It's true. It's true. So it's affecting us at the personal level, at the health level, and it's also affecting us in terms of our finances, because it leads to increased morbidity, which leads to hospitalizations, hospital visits, buying of medicines. So pollution is a major problem. But of course, we're focusing mostly on air pollution. So I was talking about the other dangerous substances that come
Yeah.
out of. We also have what we call black carbon. Black carbon is also a form of pollutant that comes from generator usage.
Okay.
That one also has an impact on climate change. When it gets up into the atmosphere, it blocks sunlight, it blocks light. And when it blocks light, also makes it more likely that the environment will heat up.
But every day we wake up, we see the sunlight. I mean, the sun rises when it should, and then.
But
so how is that happening?
There's a lot of things we don't see that are harmful to us. Even the air we breathe, where we are sitting here,
we don't
see the air, but it's
True.
there. Yes. So the sun, yes, we're seeing the sunlight, but we've done a lot of damage to our environment, to the earth. In the past, I would say 100 years, the dawn of industrialization. We've done a lot of damage. Most people, of course, would remember the ozone layer depletion issue we had about 20, 30 years ago, where we discovered we were stripping away the layer of protection, the natural layer of protection. Ozone layer is natural. God put it there to protect us from ultraviolet rays and other harmful rays from the sun. But we were using chloroforms and things, insecticide, pesticide, hairspray, air conditioner, refrigerants, those kinds of things were contributing to stripping the ozone. So that's another form of pollution. So the things that we put out there can become harmful over a long period of time. Black carbon is one of those things. Carbon dioxide is another one. We've talked about carbon monoxide, talked about particulate matter. So those are the four primary bad things coming out of our generator that we may not see, but they're actually harming us.
And we use these things almost every day. I mean,
we do.
There's no power every day.
Yes.
At one point or the other.
And my biggest worry is the impact on pregnant women. There's research we have from the U.S. showing that prolonged exposure to this harmful pollution in the air can lead to adverse pregnancy outcomes. What do we mean by that? First one is miscarriages become very common because your organs are stressed because of pollution. Another one is that you may have low birth weight children if you actually carry to term and you deliver children may not be fully matured. The other one is also infant mortality. By the time the children come out, they are so stressed that they may not survive the way they should.
I'm just smiling because these things you're just talking about now, they are things that would define them very differently culturally.
That's good.
Because number one is either if the kids are not coming, if she does not take in, she's barren.
Thank you.
And then if she's having a lot of miscarriages, then she's a witch and she's
It's
eating
true.
all the children.
It's true.
And now these things can be scientifically proven.
Related to the environment.
Yes.
So you find somebody where you live and where you work can actually affect your overall life.
Wow.
So sometimes we attribute these issues, as you said, to cultural and spiritual reasons.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word.
This really is a huge problem that we have in our society. What is the way out? I mean, I know for one thing we say, okay, when we start having constant power, then perhaps, but I don't know.
It's a huge problem because people don't quite realize it. And let me give you some statistics. Okay. World Health Organization 2 years ago did their annual review, research, investigation into air quality indexes around the world. And they discovered that here in Nigeria, 4 of our cities are among the worst in the world. Aba is one of them, Umuahia. I believe Kaduna was also part of that, Onitsha. And those are the ones that are reporting. There are some that may be even more polluted. Wow. So they did, in some of those cities, the air quality is 30 times
How
worse.
come Lagos is not part of it?
I'm sure it will be. Maybe they took the ones that were supplying the data to them. But if you look at the whole country, you'll find that air pollution is a major problem.
It will go beyond just a few states.
And then this was before we had the black suit incident in Rivers State.
I was thinking the word just skipped my memory. Yes. I wanted to talk about that.
So that one was clearly a case where pollution became so bad that you could actually see
You
it.
could see
You
it,
could
yes.
feel it. I happened to be in Port Harcourt on business when I didn't even know that something like that was happening. And for the first time, I began to see black soot on everything, on furniture. I went into the bathroom. The entire bathtub was filled with black stuff. I said, what is this stuff? So that's when I began to investigate and discover that it was pollution. Visible pollution, you know.
So you can imagine the extent for us to see it with our naked eyes.
Yes, it was settling on
surfaces.
On surfaces, and it was quite pronounced and very black, so you couldn't ignore it. So that, for the first time, was palpable evidence to us that the pollution that we've been reading about, of course, up to that point, it was always land pollution and water pollution.
Yeah.
And that was the first instance where we began to see the air manifesting the extent of pollution in that region.
Now that we're talking about, the effects, the negative things that we're getting from the usage of generator sets, noise, there's also noise pollution in that regard. For some people, they don't want to have a generator set because of the noise alone.
Yes.
It's just another...
Noise pollution is a very big problem because it leads to an associated problem, sleeplessness and irritability. If you have a generator that is just going non-stop near you, chances are that you will not sleep. Even if you try to sleep, you will not achieve what we call REM sleep. So that is a deep state of sleeplessness where the body begins to heal itself naturally. People don't know this. The body is an amazing machine. It's the only machine that repairs itself. But you have to allow it to rest.
To do that,
Yes, you have to be in deep REM sleep. Then the brain, that's the time it uses to detoxify itself. It has tiny pores that you can't see them. But at night, when you're in deep sleep, all the toxins, all the pollution that has gone into your brain is filtered out naturally. The body begins to, at the cellular level, begins to identify problems. That's why at night you find yourself, if you're sick, that's when you become really, really sick.
Okay.
That's when the pain becomes more
at
pronounced.
night.
Because the cells are trying to identify the problem and fix what they can fix for you naturally. But if you're not in deep sleep, you can't achieve that. And so you lose that. So over time, your immunity decreases because you're not able to repair yourself and help yourself naturally. So that's what generator noise can do. It can deprive you night after night. And then you have children falling sick. You have a child always sick, malaria, this one, that one, typhoid. Maybe the environment is not allowing that child to really achieve deep sleep. So the body is always stressed. The immune response is not as strong as it should be. So the child becomes always chronically sick. So, and these are things when you talk about it, people say, wow.
True. I mean, not many people would have seen it that way, but then, I mean, just look at how all of these things are related. They're all interrelated.
Yes.
If you're just joining us, the program is RAY, that is Rights of Animals and Environmental Protection, right here on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. I've been speaking with Dr. Osonwa John. He is climate change and environmental expert. And today on the program, we are looking at the effect of excessive usage of generator sets in Nigeria, how it affects the environment, especially focusing on the air pollution. Now, we've seen just how much we rely on this. I mean, for those who may be in this business now, they may be thinking we're trying to spoil their business. Well,
we should spoil
if at the end of the day we can do that, I think, we would have achieved something. But I mean, we're talking about, we are seeing how this thing affects us as individuals, our health. And then also our home, which is the earth. The atmosphere, everything.
It does.
So we really need to do something.
We do. In Nigeria, let me also look at the economic impact. In Nigeria, research shows that for everything that you buy, you're paying 40% more because we don't have a steady, low-cost power generation facility infrastructure. For instance, in the tariff rate for electricity in Nigeria is usually less than 30 naira per kilowatt hour. That's how they are measured. 23 naira, 28 naira. But if you're using a generator to provide the same electricity, the cost goes up to 60 naira to 80 naira per kilowatt hour. So you're wasting more than double just to provide the electricity. Then you also look at the impact it has on your ability to even survive as a business. A lot of our manufacturing, the factories and the plants have closed down and moved to places like Ghana and other places because when you factor in the cost of production, it's no longer profitable to be in business.
Yes. Because people will complain that you're very expensive at some point. So.
Yes. And then even to just raise the capital to keep yourself in business, it's highly prohibitive. You look at some of our telecoms companies, MTN, Glo, the major ones, they are spending so much money. Right now in Nigeria, you have in excess of 30,000 base stations, those long towers you see. And most of them are powered by diesel generators. Some of them have 2 on site. So, and that thing is supposed to be constantly going 24 hours. Otherwise, the network will collapse.
It will cease now, and we'll start complaining. No.
So they are spending a huge amount of money. You look at the banks, over 7,000 to 8,000 branches across Nigeria. They also rely on diesel generators. There's one estimate they're spending about 4 million naira per month, I believe, 4 million per month to power their generators. And then you look at even our government, our ministries,
all the
departments and agencies.
The universities.
Yes, thank you. All have generators. So the economic cost is tremendous. We are talking about 5 trillion annually. That's the estimate we're looking at. Between 4 trillion and 5 trillion just to provide power for ourselves. So it is very, very expensive.
Solution-wise now, is there any alternative to the usage of petrol? I mean, for generator sets and the whole thing.
Well, the quickest alternative would be for Nigeria to increase its power production. Not just increase it, but also make it available to consumers. See, we have a unique situation in Nigeria. The sector is bedeviled by numerous challenges. One is the issue of adequate generation. We don't even have enough to cover the needs of the country. Right now, as of December 2017, we finally achieved about 7,000 megawatts
I'm
generation.
sure we've gone way back. I mean, because there's been incidents of fire outbreak, at some
and grid collapse.
So everything, the national grid, everything just came down.
So but the problem is that in transmitting it, we're only able to transmit about 5,000 megawatts. Then, as you're transmitting it, you lose some of that power. About 10% is lost during transmission. By the time you get to distribution and the consumer, you lose another 50%. So it's a huge challenge. The industry, the operators are not making money because of numerous challenges. So we need to fix all these problems and bring constant power to Nigerians. If we do that, there are going to be some tremendous benefits. One is this money that we're talking about that is being wasted, this 5 trillion, which is about what it takes to run the whole economy, will now be plowed back into the economy. So you have a double effect in the economy.
For something more meaningful, more productive.
But the one that touches my heart even more is what we will save in terms of our carbon dioxide emissions. We've done the calculation. If you had to just cut the generator usage by half, 50%, Nigeria will save about 300 million tons of carbon dioxide that's being put out into the air. Now we have the calculation because for each gallon of gasoline that you burn, you put out about 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. For each gallon of diesel, it's about 22 pounds. So if you do the math, multiply by 60 million generators, you will see it is a huge amount of pollution that we're putting out. That's one of the reasons why Nigeria ranks as the highest contributor to climate change in Africa. You have car pollution, you have gas flaring, you have generator usage, you have bush burning, When you compound those four things,
all of them,
we become the #1 contributor to climate change. So these are very serious issues that are touching our lives. And I also point out to people, you think climate change is not affecting you? One of the reasons why we're having Fulani herdsmen and farmers clashes is because there's not enough grazing ground in the north anymore because of climate change. 20 million cattle, 40 million sheep on any given day must graze. And if you don't have that land, they have to migrate southward. So now we have to manage that challenge so that it doesn't lead to some of the things we've seen in the past week.
You earlier, before we came on air, you mentioned something about consumers also wasting power.
Yes.
How do we actually do that? And how can we stop it?
Power wastage happens in three ways. One is the vessels we use to harvest the power are not efficient. For instance, our light bulbs. Most of us are still using incandescent light bulbs. That's the yellow light bulb that we all grew up with.
I think we're trying now. We're trying. I can't remember the last time.
But let me make bold to tell you, as we sit here in Nigeria, there are no true energy efficient light bulbs in Nigeria. Period.
Okay.
These ones are fake. All of them. I challenge all the manufacturers to take me on.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, they are all fake because a true energy efficient light bulb will last for 5 years. I have never bought in the past 10 years. I have never bought a light bulb in Nigeria that lasted more than a year. They're supposed to last minimally 5 years.
Wow.
So
if it was original, it should last that long.
If they are giving us what we truly should get, each bulb that you buy that is supposed to be energy efficient should last you for 5 years.
Okay.
Now, when you even get into the real measurement of how much wattage you're saving, you'll find out that you're not saving that much. But nobody is really policing this stuff. So I would say that the bulbs we're using, whether you call them energy efficient or the old one, we are wasting so much energy. We're wasting 75% of the energy at that point. Then you look at inefficient energy consumption habits. What do I mean? You leave everything on in your house, even when you don't need them. Rooms, once light comes back, everything goes at full blast. All the TVs are going, the fans, the ACs, lights. Must you really have all those things at once? Then even when we leave the house, we leave things on. Then the appliances that we're using, the refrigerators, the ACs, all those things, a lot of them are not energy efficient because you pay a little bit more if you want to buy the energy efficient one. So people just look at the lowest price and pick it up. But in the long run, the energy cost will actually be more expensive to you. So that's why I'm saying we're losing minimally 50 to 60% at the consumption level. Then you have the transmission losses too. So much of the little energy that we generate is wasted. And that's one of the things I have been working on to see how we can address that. If you address that, then most households and businesses in Nigeria will have light. We are almost at a point where... Yes. Solar is very, very... it's wonderful. Solar is just taking over the world. For the first time in the history of the world, we had more gigawattage of power installed based on solar technology.
That's Nigeria now.
No, I'm talking about the whole world.
Okay, let's see how the whole world may be doing well, but what is
Nigeria,
our own contribution?
I was going to relate it to Nigeria. We are also imbibing that culture. If you look at the energy projects that are in the pipeline, some of them are solar projects, particularly in the north. There are some solar projects that will come on stream very soon. So solar is a wonderful alternative. However, solar has limitations.
Okay.
There are two ways you can do solar. One is the direct photovoltaic system, where you install the solar panels that we all know about, and that leads you to an inverter and power. That's one. There's also another one we call concentrated solar. That's when you have thousands of solar in a desert, and they're all pointing their beam to a tower. That tower heats up steam, which provides power. The benefit of that is you can do huge power generation with that, unlike these individual pieces that we do. So we need to incorporate the two. Solar is wonderful, but at the level that we're using it here, it only powers like lights, fans,
street
TV,
lights,
things like that.
Yeah.
You can't use it for heavy industrial production unless you're doing concentrated solar technology, which we need to do more of. The world is moving in that direction. It's just wonderful.
Okay, there seems to be so much to talk about even with this. But then let's get to open up the phone line and see who may have a question or two concerning our conversation so far this afternoon. If you want to be a part of the show, you have a question for my guest, feel free to call the number 081-8999-1011. That is 081-8999-1011. The program is Ray, Rights of Animals and Environmental Protection. Today we're focusing on the environment and, more focus on the excessive usage of generator sets in Nigeria, how it affects our health personally as an individual and also the environment as a whole. So if you have any question for Dr. Osonwa, feel free to call in and ask. Sorry, I just lost that call, but try and call me right back. And I do hope we have a connection. Hello?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. What's your name?
My name is Nnamani Odinaka.
All right.
I'm calling from Karimo.
Okay, Nnamani, we're with you. All right. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Please, I want to ask the gentleman to please also assist the average ones to make sure the power sectors distribute all the items they ask them to distribute, like meters. Nobody has meters now. They just write with viral. They give you 18,000, 10,000.
Okay.
And what you are saying
Nnamani.
is more than half.
Nnamani.
Yeah.
He's not working for NEPA. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. He's an environmental expert.
Okay, but please, you people also in the media to help us and the
I'm sure this conversation must have been very enlightening, and anyone who has listened, would take a thing or two. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right then. Well, PHCN. Sorry if you just hear NEPA, just know that it's PHCN, or we're just talking about power sector. All right. At a point, I actually thought to myself too that you were perhaps from any other AEDC or stuff like that. But no, he's not. Okay. That's why people can become experts really when you know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
You get to go beyond your own field and all that. So that's just it.
They're all interrelated. Yeah.
Yes. All right. 081-8999-1011. You can see on the hearts and minds of people, power is very, very important, and it's something that lately the distribution now has been so poorly done. Like we mentioned the whole. Sorry, let's pick this call. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. You're welcome. What's your name?
My name is Ibrahim. I'm calling from Yaya.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yes, the guest in the studio has been very wonderful with his teaching this afternoon. I want to advise, don't you think it would be more efficient if individual homes are encouraged to have this solar power of a thing?
Okay.
Yes, what can the government do to encourage individuals to have them so to conserve the power?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Ibrahim, thank you so much for your call. Do you think people would not want to use it?
No.
Sometimes it sounds like it's very expensive.
Solar is the way of the future. I remember 5 years ago when we started talking about solar, it was very, very expensive. Now, the kilowatt hour rate is converging. It's it's coming down close to what you will get with conventional power when you factor in the initial cost and the usage over maybe a year or two. So I think we're going to move in that direction. We're already moving, but for now it's for rich people, but eventually it will become even for the common person, at least to to tide you over during the night. You can have light for your children to read, to see, and do what you need to do.
And sleep well, especially when the weather is not friendly.
You can have your fan, you can have, a few television. So I think solar is the way of the future. But the cost is still a little bit out of reach for some people now, especially with this recession.
True. True that. All right. So let's just wrap our thoughts up on generally how we do we need to reduce the usage, especially for home use, perhaps, because sometimes it gets so bad that you have neighbors that use their generator sets from morning till night.
Yes.
And you're wondering, okay, what are people selling? What is it? Can we have some peace? Can it help if we perhaps try to regulate the usage?
I don't think you can, because government has a primary obligation to provide power. In Nigeria, we are doing very badly in this sector. Let me give you a statistic. The per capita kilowatt hour usage in Nigeria is just around 150 per day. For other people, places like South Africa, they're at 4,000 per day. Look at that, 150 to 4,000.
Wow.
You look at places like US, it's 13,000, and we're just at 150. So government has an obligation to do more. They are trying. I know they are trying, but the pace is not fast enough. I was reading an article. Some journalist said he was sitting somewhere and he was reading an article he wrote in the 80s talking about power moving to 4,000 megawatts, 1980 something. And now 30 years later, we're still talking about power moving from 4,000 to 5,000. So we need to have actual progress, not just the effort to make progress. We're doing a lot of that, but we need to have actual progress. Nigeria needs minimally about 20,000 megawatts for everybody to have light, at least, and then we'll now begin to work on the industrial sector. You need about 50,000 megawatts. Right now we're at 5,000, just 1/10 of what we truly need. So that is the primary focus. We need to do more. If government can fix that problem, I think everything else will fall into place for everyone.
Well, first, I think government needs to understand the effects, the consequences,
of not having constant power.
Yes.
Yes.
To see how it can affect us as a people and how it affects the world all over, and then take the whole climate change thing more seriously. Perhaps it can help.
Interestingly, we were chatting about this before. I have a team that has a solution that may not take 5 years. The current conventional strategy will take about 5 years and about $20 billion US dollars. There's another way you can do it, but I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to preach that on air, but there's a solution, and we're going to be working on it this year.
Well, there always seems. I mean, just like they will say, whenever there's a problem, it means there's a solution. Like, I mean, for the problem to exist in the first place, it means you can work it. But then it's the willpower, the determination to ensure that you go through with it to bring an end to whatever bad situation one may be going through.
Yes, that has been the impediment, the political will to do it. But I think we're beginning to find a way around that. We want to involve the private sector. This year we decided we're going to involve the private sector.
It's a shame that you see adults, grown-ups, both men and women, the moment power is restored, everybody screams. I'm like, seriously?
And that's how it's been for 40 years.
It's been for decades.
Yes.
We should really grow past that. Really, it's a shame.
Yeah,
it really is a shame. And people be running to go and start charging their phones and all. Come on.
It's still that way.
Okay, we'll continue to talk about things like this, really, until something positive comes out of it, and we'll all be smiling.
If the government listens, everybody should have light by the end of this year. The question is the political will. The solution is there.
Government, please listen and let us have power. It really has been a delight speaking with you, Dr. Osonwa.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being on the program, and many thanks to those who listen in on the program. We'll do this again, God willing, come Sunday from 1 p.m. up until this time, right here on Human Rights Radio 101.1 FM. And this is where we say goodbye on the program. But I'll be back in the 2 o'clock hour on the program The Violator. Do stay with us.